Huzzah! I really need to think of an opening. Y'all, I need to think of like a intro. I don't have it. I'm gonna work on that. I need like a, like, you know how like everyone's got like the hello, it's me, but it's like a fun opening. I never know what to say when I open the stream. I'm like, what's up, dog? It's me, Cora Velorum. I'm sorry, ever stream like that. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Oh shit, double audio. I open the stream and it's like, it's a me, Cora Velorum. Bora, Autumn, thank you. Subcaptions. How beautiful. How's it going? It's going great, gamers. Well, I'm great. How are you? Yeah, I started stream early because I was like, oh shit, I have the house to myself, which I never get the house to myself. So I was like, I need to record something in my kitchen later while I have like the time and space to like move stuff around and use an open room. Because otherwise, my dad's like, what the hell are you doing? Stop fucking up the kitchen. And I'm like, but I gotta record. So yeah. So I was like, fuck it, I'll start stream early. And also before my neighbors end up hating me. Ugh. So I have our book. We're on chapter 4. Chapter 4 of Only God Knows. We were 26 pages last time, so we're on page 27. Okay, yeah, I marked this off at like chapter 7, which is about 20 more pages. So it's a slow read, but we'll get there. All right. Hello. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me get back into my voices. Well, I'll be damned. That's our southern voice and British. It's Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I need like atmospheric music. I'll figure that out next time. Sit back, watch, put your feet up, pretend this is an audiobook. Konbini audiobook presents Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Chapter 4, read by Cora Velorum. Far away on the opposite spiral arm of the galaxy, 500,000 light-years from the star Sol, Zaphod Beelzebrox, president of the Imperial Galactic Government, sped across the seas of Damogran, his ion drive delta boat winking and flashing in the Damogran sun. Damogran, the hot. Damogran the hot. Damogran the remote. Damogran the almost totally unheard of. Damogran, the secret home of the Heart of Gold. The boat sped across the water. It would be some time before it reached its destination because Damogran is such an inconveniently arranged planet. It consists of nothing but middling to large desert islands, separated by very pretty but annoyingly wide stretches of ocean. The boat sped on. Man, that sounds like the ocean. Wow, that's crazy. Because of this topographical awkwardness, Damogran has always remained a deserted planet. This is why the Imperial Galactic Government chose Damogran for the Heart of Gold project, because it was so deserted and the Heart of Gold project was so secret. I mean, case in point. The boat zipped and skipped across the sea that lay between the main islands of the only archipelago of any useful size on the whole planet. Zaphod Beelzebrox was on its way to the tiny spaceport on Easter Island. Yo, hey, that's funny. The name was entirely meaningless coincidence. In galactic speak, Easter means small, flat, and light brown, to the Heart of Gold Island, which by another meaningless coincidence was called France. French mention. Get him out of here. Where's my shirt? Do not bring the French near me. I will get violent. God, the thought of French people has just ruined my day. One of the side effects of work on the Heart of Gold was a whole string of pretty meaningless coincidences. But it was not in any way a coincidence that today, the day of culmination of the project, The great day of unveiling, the day that Heart of Gold was finally to be introduced to a marveling galaxy, was also a great day of culmination for Zaphod Beeblebrox. Holy fuck, what is this name? It was for the sake of this day that he had first decided to run for the presidency, a decision that had sent shockwaves of astonishment through the Imperial Galaxy. Zaphod Beeblebrox, the president? Not the Zaphod Beeblebrox, not the president. Many had seen it as clinching proof that the whole of known creation has finally gone bananas. Zaphod grinned and gave the boat an extra kick of speed. Zaphod Beeblebrox, adventurer, ex-hippie, good timer, crook, quite possibly, manic self-publicist, terrible bad at personal relationships, often thought to be completely out to lunch. President. No one had gone bananas. Not in that way, at least. Only 6 people in the entire galaxy understood the principle on which the galaxy was governed, and they knew that once Zaphod Beeblebrox had announced his intention to run as president, it was more or less a fait accompli. He was ideal presidency fodder. What they had completely failed to understand was why Zaphod was doing it. He banked sharply, shooting a wild wall of water at the sun. What is a manic pixie? He sounds like a manic pixie dream girl. If it's the guy I'm thinking of in the show, here, you guys know Jason Momoa in the Minecraft movie. I don't remember if this is like 100% true, but the way like Jason Momoa, what the fuck is his last name? Momoa. Oh, I'm thinking of the bitch from fucking Good Place. Jason. Yeah, that's what his name is from the Good Place, right? Hold on. Yeah, I'm mixing up him with like the guy from the Good Place. Okay. Jason Momoa, Aquaman. The way he looks in the Minecraft movie. I think there's a guy in the movie that looks like him, and that's Zaphod Beeblebrox. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I remember. I like Ted Dan. Oh, is that his name, Ted Danson? You haven't. You should watch The Good Place. The Good Place is such a good show. I rewatch it like once every 2 years. Today was the day. Today was the day when they would realize what Zaphod had been up to. Today was what Zaphod Beeblebrox's presidency was all about. Today was also his 200th birthday, but that was just another meaningless coincidence. As he skipped his boat across the seas of Damagran, he smiled quietly to himself about what a wonderful, exciting day it was going to be. He relaxed and spread his 2 arms lazily along the back seat back. He steered with an extra arm he had recently had fitted just beneath his right one to help improve his ski boxing. Okay, maybe I'm not thinking of this guy. Hey, he cooed to himself. You're a real cool boy, you. What the fuck? You're a real cool boy, you. But his nerves sang a song shriller than a dog whistle. The island of France was about 20 miles long, 5 miles across the middle, sandy and crescent-shaped. Croissant? Croissant Island? Croissant? In fact, it seemed to exist not so much as an island in its own right, as simply a means of defining the sweeping curve of a huge bay. This impression was heightened by the fact that the inner coastline of the crescent, I keep wanting to say croissant, consisted almost entirely of steep cliffs. From the top of the cliff, the land sloped slowly down in 5 miles to the opposite shore. On top of the cliff stood a reception committee. It consisted in a large part of engineers and researchers who had built the Heart of Gold, mostly humanoid, but here and there were a few reptiloid Adamneers, 2 or 3 green sylph-like megalacticans, an octopodic, I'm not even gonna try it. It sounds like a physicist, but it's not. Or 2, and hulavu. A hulavu is a super intelligent shade of the color blue. Am I on fucking drugs? Sorry, what am I reading? I remember reading this, but I don't remember all this in here. A super intelligent shade of the color blue. All except the hulavu were resplendent in their multicolored ceremonial lab coats. The hula-voo had been temporarily refracted into a freestanding prism for the occasion. Octopodic, yeah, octopodic is probably like 8-legged, or just an octopod-looking creature. There was a mood of immense excitement thrilling through all of them. Together and between them, they had gone to and beyond the furthest limits of physical laws, restructured the fundamental fabric of matter, strained, twisted, and broken the laws of possibility and impossibility, but still, the greatest excitement of all seemed to be the man with an orange sash around his neck. An orange sash was what the president of the galaxy traditionally wore. It might not have even made much a difference to them if they'd known exactly how much power the president of the galaxy actually wielded. None at all. Only 6 people in the galaxy knew that the job of the galactic president was not to wield the power, but to attract attention away from it. Zaphod Beeblebrox was amazingly good at his job. The crowd gasped, dazzled by the sun and seamanship. Like a guy who's on the sea, okay. As the presidential speedboat zipped around the headland into the bay. It flashed and shone as it came skating over the sea in wide skidding turns. Bro's doing donuts in the fucking boat parking lot. That's crazy. In fact, it didn't need to touch the water at all, because it was supported on a hazy cushion of ionized atoms. But just for effect, it was fitted with thin fin blades, which could be lowered into the water. They slashed sheets of water hissing into the air, carved deep gashes in the sea, which swayed crazily and sank back, foaming the boat's wake as it careered across the bay. Zaphod loved the effect. It was what he was best at. Damn. Job deception aura farming. That's exactly how I feel. He's straight up just an aura farmer. Me when I aura farm all over the place. He twisted the wheel sharply. The boat skidded round in a wild scything skid between the cliff face and dropped to rest lightly on the rocking waves. Within seconds, he ran out onto the deck and waved and grinned at over 3 billion people. 3 billion people weren't actually there, but they watched his every gesture through the eyes of a small robot tri-D camera, which hovered obsequiously in the air nearby. The antics of the president always made amazingly popular tri-D. That's what they were for. He grinned again. 3,000,000,006 people didn't know it. But today would be bigger antic than anyone had bargained for. The robot camera homed in for a close-up on the more popular of his 2 heads, and he waved again. He was roughly humanoid in appearance, except for the extra head and 3rd arm. His fairly tousled hair stuck out in completely random directions, his blue eyes glinted with something completely unidentifiable, and his chins were almost always unshaven. How is this man aura farming? He sounds ugly. A 20-foot-high transparent globe floated next to his boat, rolling and bobbing, glistening in the brilliant sun. Inside it floated a wide semicircular sofa, upholstered in glorious red leather. The more the globe bobbed and rolled, the more the sofa stayed perfectly still, steadying as an upholstered rock. Again, all done for effect as much as anything. Not the globe. Dude's literally towing around a giant, like a globe with a sofa in it, and his aura is dependent on how still the globe is. That's nuts. That's something. Zaphod stepped to the wall of the globe and relaxed on the sofa. He spread his 2 arms along the back and with the 3rd brushed some dust off his knee. His head looked about, smiling. He put his feet up. At any moment, he thought, he might scream. Dude, he's so real. Wait, he's actually kind of real as fuck. Me when I'm pretending everything's fine, but everything is not fine. So long and thanks for all the fish. Water boiled up beneath the bubble. It seethed and spouted. The bubble surged into the air, bobbing and rolling on the waterspout. Up, up, up it climbed, throwing stilts of light at the cliff. It surged on the jet, the water falling from beneath it, crashing back into the sea hundreds of feet below. Zaphod smiled, picturing himself. A thoroughly ridiculous form of transport, but a thoroughly beautiful one. At the top of the cliff, the globe wavered for a moment, tipped onto a railed ramp, rolled down it to a small concave platform, and riddled to a halt. To tremendous applause, Zaphod Beeblebrock stepped out of the bubble, his orange sash blazing in the light. The president of the galaxy had arrived. He waited for the applause to die down, then raised his hand in greeting. "Hi," he said. A government spider sidled up to him and attempted to press a copy of his prepared speech into his hands. Pages 3 to 7 of the original version were at the moment floating soggily on the Damagran Sea, some 5 miles out from the bay. Pages 1 and 2 had been salvaged by a Damagran frond-crested eagle and had become incorporated into an extraordinary new form of nest which the eagle had invented. It was constructed largely of paper mache. Dude, there's so many spelling errors! There's so many spelling... I thought I was going crazy. No, it's not me. There's so many spelling errors in this book. I was like, why do I keep fucking up? No, they're spelled wrong. Paper mache is spelled wrong. And it was virtually impossible for a newly hatched baby eagle to break out of it. The Damagran frond-crested eagle had heard of the notion of survival of the species, but wanted no truck with it. What does that even mean? Zaphod Beeblebrox would not be needing his set speech, and he gently deflected the one being offered to him by the spider. "Hi," he said again. Everyone beamed at him, or at least nearly everyone. He singled out Trillian from the crowd. Trillian was a girl that Zaphod had picked up recently while visiting a planet. Just for fun. Incognito. She was slim, darkish, humanoid with long waves of black hair. Can you describe her like that? A full mouth, an odd little knob of a nose, and ridiculously brown eyes. That's how... Can I say this? Okay. With her red headscarf knotted in that particular way, and her long, flowing, silky brown dress, she looked vaguely Arabic. Not that anyone there had ever heard of an Arab, of course. The Arabs had very recently ceased to exist. And even when they had existed, they were 500,000 light years from Damagran. Trillian wasn't anybody in particular, or so Zaphod claimed. She just went around with him rather a lot and told him what she thought of him. "Hi, honey," he said to her. She flashed him a quick, tight smile and looked away. But then she looked back for a moment and smiled more warmly. But by this time, he was looking at something else. "Hi," he said to a small knot of creatures from the press who were standing nearby, wishing that he would stop saying hi and get on with the quotes. He grinned at them particularly because he knew that in a few moments he would be giving them one hell of a quote. The next thing he said, though, was not of a lot of use to them. One of the officials of the party had irritably decided that the president was clearly not in a mood to read the deliciously turned speech that had been written for him, and had flipped the switch on the remote-controlled device in his pocket. Away in front of them, a huge white dome that bulged against the sky cracked down the middle, split, and slowly floated itself down into the ground. Everyone gasped, although they had known perfectly well it was going to do that because they built it that way. Beneath it lay uncovered a huge starship, 150 meters long, shaped like a sleek running shoe, perfectly white and mind-bogglingly beautiful. At the heart of it, unseen, lay a small gold box, which carried within it the most brain-wrenching device ever conceived. A device that made this starship unique in the history of the galaxy. A device after which the ship had been named the Heart of Gold. "Wow," said Zaphod Beeblebrox to the Heart of Gold. There wasn't much else he could say. He said it again because he knew it would annoy the press. Wow. I fucking like this guy, actually. The crowd turned their faces back towards him expectantly. He winked at Trillian, who raised her eyebrow and widened her eyes at him. She knew what he was about to say and thought him a terrible show-off. I really want to do a specific voice for him because of the way he talks, but I cannot. That is really amazing, he said. Really is truly amazing. That's so amazingly amazing. I think I'd like to steal it. A marvelous presidential quote. Absolutely true to form. The crowd laughed appreciatively. The newsmen gleefully punched on their sub-etha newsmatics, and the president grinned. As he grinned, his heart screamed unbearably, and he fingered the small paraliziomatic bomb that nestled quietly— Whoa! Whoa! That nestled quietly in his pocket! Finally, he could bear it no more. He lifted his head up to the sky, let out a wild whoop in major thirds, threw the bomb to the ground, and ran forward through the sea of suddenly frozen, beaming smiles. What? What? Excuse me? He just bombed the whole fucking crowd. I mean, it was a freeze bomb, but still. Holy shit. Okay. Chapter 5. Prosthetic Vogon Jeltz was not a pleasant sight, even for other Vogons. His highly domed nose rose above a small, piggy forehead. His dark green rubbery skin was thick enough for him to play the game of Vogon civil service politics, and play it well, and waterproof enough for him to survive indefinitely at sea depths of down to 1,000 feet with no ill effects. So are we just not gonna acknowledge the fact that the president just bombed a crowd and stole a ship? Okay. Not that he ever went swimming, of course. His busy schedule would not allow it. He was the way he was because billions of years ago, when the Vogons had first crawled out of the sluggish primeval seas of Volksphere, he had lain panting and heaving on the planet's virgin shores. When the first rays of the bright young Volksol sun had shone across them that morning, it was as if the forces of evolution had simply given up on them. There and then. He had turned aside in disgust and written them off as an ugly and unfortunate mistake. They never evolved again. They should never have survived. The fact that they did is some kind of tribute to the thick-willed, slug-brained stubbornness of these creatures. Evolution, they said to themselves? Who needs it? And what nature refused to do for them, they simply did without. They did without until such times they were able to rectify the gross anatomical inconveniences with surgery. Meanwhile, the natural forces of the planet Volksphere had been working overtime to make up for their earlier blunder. They brought forth scintillating, jeweled, scuttling crabs, which the Vogons ate, smashing their shells with iron mallets. Tall, aspiring trees of breathtaking splendorness and color, which the Vogons cut down and burned the crab meat with. Elegant, gazelle-like creatures with silken coats and dewy eyes, which the Vogons would catch and sit on. They were no use as transport because their backs would snap instantly. But the Vogons sat on them anyways. Damn! Thus the planet Volksphere, while away the unhappy millennia until the Vogons suddenly discovered the principles of interstellar travel. Within a few short Vog years, every last Vogon had migrated to the Megabrantis cluster, the political hub of the galaxy, and now formed the immensely powerful backbone of the galactic civil service. They've attempted to acquire learning, they've attempted to acquire style and social graces, but in most respects the modern Vogon is a little different from his primitive forebears. Every year they import 27,000 scintillating jeweled scuttling crabs from their native planet, while away a happy, drunken night smashing them to bit with iron mallets. That's a national holiday I can get behind. Prostetnik and Vogon Jeltz was a fairly typical Vogon, in that he was thoroughly vile. Also, he did not like hitchhikers. Somewhere in a small dark cabin buried deep in the intestines of Prostetnik Vogon Jeltz's flagship, a small match flared nervously. The owner of the match was not a Vogon, but he knew all about them and was right to be nervous. His name was Ford Prefect. He looked about the cabin but could see very little. Strange, monstrous shadows loomed and leaped with a tiny flickering flame. But all was quiet. He breathes a silent thank you to the dentricists. The dentricists are an unruly tribe of gourmands, a wild but pleasant whom the Vogons had recently taken to employing as catering staff on their long-haul fleets, on the strict understanding that they keep themselves very much to themselves. This suited the dentricists fine, because they loved Vogon money, which is one of the hardest currencies in space, but loathed the Vogons themselves. The only sort of Vogon a dentricy liked to see was an annoyed Vogon. It was because this tiny piece of information that Ford Prefect was not now a whiff of hydrogen, ozone, and carbon monoxide. He heard a slight groan. By the light of the match, he saw a heavy shape moving slightly on the floor. Quickly, he shook the match out, reached in his pocket, found what he was looking for, and took it out. He ripped it open and shook it. Crouched on the floor, the shape moved again. Ford Prefect said, "I brought some peanuts." Arthur Dent moved, and groaned again, muttering incoherently. "Here, have some," urged Ford, shaking the packet again. "If you've never been through a matter transfer beam before, you probably lost some salt and protein. The beer you had should have cushioned your system a bit." Said Arthur Dent. He opened his eyes. "It's dark," he said. "Yes," said Ford Prefect. "It's dark." "No light," said Arthur Dent. Dark. No light." One of the things Ford Prefect had always found hardest to understand about humans was their habits of continually stating or repeating very obvious, as in, "It's a nice day," or "You're very tall," or "Oh dear, you seem to have fallen down a 30-foot well. Are you all right?" At first, Ford had formed a theory to account for this strange behavior. If human beings don't keep exercising their lips, he thought, their mouths probably seize up. After a few months' consideration and observation, he abandoned this theory in favor of a new one. If they don't keep on exercising their lips, he thought, their brains start working. After a while, he abandoned this one as well as being obstructively cynical and decided he quite liked human beings after all. But he always remained desperately worried about the terrible number of things they didn't know about. "Yes," he agreed with Arthur. "No light." He helped Arthur to some peanuts. "How do you feel?" he asked him. "Like a military academy," said Arthur. "Bits of me keep on passing out." How many wells is Ford equating with? Apparently a lot. Apparently a lot of 30-foot wells. Ford stared at him blankly in the darkness. "If I asked you where the hell we were," said Arthur weakly, "would I regret it?" Ford stood up. "We're safe," he said. "Oh, good," said Arthur. "We're in a small galley cabin," said Ford. "In one of the spaceships, of course. In one of the spaceships of a Vogon constructor fleet." "Ah," said Arthur. "This is obviously some strange usage of the word safe that I wasn't previously aware of." Ford struck another match to help him search for a light switch. Monstrous shadows leaped and loomed again. Arthur struggled to his feet and hugged himself apprehensively. Hideous alien shapes seemed to throng about him. It's rude. The air was thick with musty smells which sidled into his lungs without identifying themselves, and a low, irritating hum kept his brain from focusing. "How did we get here?" he asked, shivering slightly. "We hitched a lift," said Ford. "Excuse me," said Arthur. "Are you trying to tell me that we just stuck our thumbs out and some green bug-eyed monster stuck his head out and said, 'Hi fellas, hop right in, I can take you as far as the Bag-and-Stoke roundabout'?" "Well," said Ford, "the thumb's an electronic sub-ether signaling device. The roundabout at Barnard Star 6 light years away, but otherwise it's more or less right." "And the bug-eyed monster?" "Is green, yes." "Fine." Oh! I got jump scared. "And the bug-eyed monster?" "Is green, yes." "Fine," said Arthur. "When can I go home?" You can't," said Ford Prefect, and found the light switch. "Shade your eyes," he said, and turned it on. Even Ford was surprised. "Good grief," said Arthur. "Is this really the interior of a flying saucer?" Prosthetic Vogon Jeltz heaved his unpleasant green body around the control bridge. He always felt vaguely irritable after demolishing populated planets. He wished that someone would come and tell him that it was all wrong so that he could shout at them and feel better. Oh, Bubby, are you okay? He flopped as heavily as he could onto his control seat and hoped that it would break and give him something to be genuinely angry about. But it only gave a complaining sort of creak. Go away! He shouted at a young Vogon guard who entered the bridge at that moment. The guard vanished immediately, feeling rather relieved. He was glad it wouldn't now be him who delivered the report they just received. The report was an official release which said that a wonderful new form of spaceship drive was at the moment being unveiled at a government research base on Damagran, which would henceforth make all hyperspatial express routes unnecessary. Oh, shit. So, rip Earth, I guess, for no reason. Another door slid open, but this time the Vogon captain didn't shout because it was the door from the galley quarters where the Dentresses prepared his meals. A meal would be most welcome. A huge, furry creature bounded through the door with his lunch tray. It was grinning like a maniac. Prosthetic Vogon Jeltz was delighted. He knew what a Dentressy looked like. He knew that when a Dentressy looked that pleased with itself, there was something going on somewhere on the ship that he could get very angry about indeed. Ford and Arthur stared around them. Well, what do you think? Said Ford. It's a bit squalid, isn't it? Ford frowned at the grubby mattresses, unwashed cups, and unidentifiable bits of smelly alien underwear that lay around the cramped cabin. Well, this is a working ship, you see, said Ford. These are the Dentresses' sleeping quarters. I thought you said they were called Vogons or something. Yes, said Ford. The Vogons run the ship. The Dentresses are the cooks. They let us on board. I'm confused, said Arthur. Here, have a look at this, said Ford. He sat down on one of the mattresses and rummaged about in his satchel. Arthur prodded the mattress nervously, then sat on it himself. In fact, he had very little to be nervous about, because all the mattresses grown in the swamps of Scornshellus Zeta are very thoroughly killed and dried before being put to serve. Oh. 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 Okay. Very few have ever come to life again. Mom, I'm scared. Ford handed the book to Arthur. What is it? Said Arthur. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a sort of electronic book. It tells you everything you need to know about anything. That's its job. Arthur turned it over nervously in his hands. I like the cover, he said. Don't panic. It's the first helpful or intelligible thing anybody said to me all day. I'll show you how it works, said Ford. He snatched it from Arthur, who was still holding it as if it were 2 weeks dead lark, and pulled it out of his cover. You press this button here, you see, and the screen lights up, giving you an index. A screen, about 3 inches by 4, lit up and characters began to flicker across the surface. You want to know about Vogon, so I entered that name, so... His finger tapped some more keys. And there we are. Hi, Ava. There's a lot of words in this book that are scaring me. The president just bombed people. It's kind of crazy. The words Vogon... Oh, sorry. We're not speaking anymore. The words Vogon Constructor Fleet stared in green across the screen. Ford pressed a large red button at the bottom of the screen, and words began to undulate across it. At the same time, the book began to speak in the entry in a still, quiet, measured voice. This is what the book said. I like bomb... I don't know if you can say that on YouTube. Vogon Constructor... Wait. Hold on. I need to prep my like Siri like voice for this. Please place the item back in the bag. Turn right onto... Alright. Bet. Vogon Constructor Fleets. Here is what to do if you want to get a lift from a Vogon. Forget it. They are one of the most unpleasant races in the galaxy. Not actually evil, but bad-tempered, bureaucratic, officious, and callous. They wouldn't even lift a finger to save their own grandmothers from the ravenous bug-bladder beast of Trowel without orders signed in triplicate, sent in, set back, queried, lost, found, subjected to public inquiry, lost again, and finally buried in soft peat for 3 months and recycled as firelighters. The best way to get a drink from a Vogon is to stick your finger down its throat, and the best way to irritate him is to feed its grandmother to the ravenous bug-bladder beast of Trowel. On no account allow a Vogon to read poetry at you. Say some clean Cora cannot be real? What do you mean say so clean Cora? What, you don't like my, they're not evil, even worse, they're bureaucrats? Basically. An ode to oh yeah, Vogon poetry. The worst thing known to man. Okay. Arthur blinked at it. What a strange book. How did we get a lift then? That's the point. It's out of date now, said Ford, sliding the book back into its cover. I'm doing the field research for the new revised edition, and one of the things I'll have to do is include a bit about how the Vogons now employ Dentresy cooks, which gives us a rather useful little loophole. A painful expression crossed Arthur's face. But who are the Dentresy? He said. Great guys, said Ford. They're the best cooks and the best drink mixers, and they don't give a wet slap about anything else. And they'll always help hitchhikers aboard, partly because they like the company, but mostly because it annoys the Vogons, which isn't exactly the sort of thing you need to know if you're an impoverished hitchhiker trying to see the marvels of the universe for less than 30 Altarian dollars a day. And that's my job. Fun, isn't it? Arthur looked lost. It's amazing, he said, and frowned at one of the other mattresses. Unfortunately, I got stuck on Earth for rather longer than I intended, said Ford. I came for a week and got stuck for 15 years. But how did you get stuck there in the first place? Easy, I got a lift with a taser. A taser? Yeah. What is a taser? Tasers are usually rich kids with nothing to do. They cruise around looking for planets that haven't made interstellar contact yet and buzz them. Buzz them? Arthur began to feel that Ford was enjoying making life difficult for them. Yeah, said Ford. They buzz them. They find some isolated spot with very few people around, then land right by some poor, unsuspecting soul whom no one's ever gonna believe, then strut up and down in front of him wearing silly antennas in their head making beep-boop noises. Rather childish, really. Ford leaned back on the mattress with his hands behind his head and looked infuriatingly pleased with himself. That's so fucking funny. I love the idea that some aliens come to Earth just to fuck around with us. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why we haven't seen aliens again. They showed up, went, we're here, bye, and then left. That's why I'm here. No one will ever believe you guys. No one will ever believe you. I'm an alien. Bingo's bonded. Ford, insisted Arthur. I don't know if this sounds like a silly question, but what am I doing here? Well, you know that, said Ford. I rescued you from the Earth. And what's happened to the Earth? Ah, it's been demolished. Has it? Said Arthur levelly. Yep. Just boiled away in space. Look, said Arthur. I'm a bit upset about that. Ford frowned to himself and seemed to roll a thought around in his mind. Yeah, I can understand that, he said at last. Understand that, shouted Arthur. Understand that! Ford sprang up. Keep looking at the book, he hissed urgently. What? Don't panic. I'm not panicking. Yes, you are. All right, so I'm panicking. What else is there to do? You just come along with me and have a good time. The galaxy's a fun place. You'll need to have this fish in your ear. I beg your pardon, asked Arthur. Rather politely, he thought. Ford was holding up a small glass jar, which clearly had a small yellow fish wriggling around in it. Arthur blinked at him. He wished there was something simple and recognizable he could grasp hold of. He would have felt safe alongside the dentist's underwear, the piles of scorn-shelled mattresses, and the man from Beetlejuice holding up a small yellow fish and offering to put it in his ear, had he been able to see just a small packet of cornflakes. But he couldn't. He didn't feel safe. Suddenly, a violent noise leaped at them from no source that he could identify. He gasped in terror at what sounded like a man trying to gargle while fighting off a pack of wolves. British Cora sounds kinda hot. What? Maybe I'll become British. Just kidding. I would never. Fuck the Brits. Shush, said Ford. Listen, it might be important. I'm important. Oh, sorry. Important? It's the Vogon captain making an announcement on Tannoy. You mean it's the Vogons talk? Listen. But I can't speak Vogon. You don't need to. Just put this fish in your ear. Don't question it. Just put the fish in your ear. Ford, with a lightning movement, clapped his hand to Arthur's ear, and he had the sudden sickening sensation of the fish slithering deep into his aural tract? The ear canal. Gasping with horror as he scrabbled for his ear for a second or so, but then slowly turned goggle-eyed with wonder. He was experiencing the equivalent of looking at a picture with two black silhouetted faces and suddenly seeing as a picture of a white candlestick. Or of looking at a lot of colored dots on a piece of paper which suddenly resolved himself into a figure 6, meaning that your optician is going to charge you a lot of money for a new pair of glasses. He was still listening to howling gargles, he knew that. But only now, he had somehow taken on the semblance of perfectly straightforward English. This is what he heard. Howl, 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 gargle, bow, gargle, bow, bow, gargle, bow, howl, gargle, bow, should have a good time. Message repeats. This is your captain speaking, so stop whatever you're doing and pay attention. First of all, I see from our instruments that we have a couple of hitchhikers aboard. Hello, whoever you are. Alright, hold on, I need to fucking... Wazowski. Wazowski. I just want to make it totally clear that you are not at all welcome. I worked hard to get where I am today, and I didn't become captain of a Vogon constructor ship simply so I could turn it into a taxi service for a load of degenerate freeloaders. I sent out a search party, and as soon as they find you, I'll put you off on the ship. If you're very lucky, I might read you some of my poetry first. Secondly, we are about to jump into hyperspace for the journey to Bernard Star. On arrival, we will stay in dock for a 72-hour refit, and no one's to leave this ship during that time. I repeat, all planet leave is canceled. I've just had an unhappy love affair, so I don't see why anybody else should have a good time. Message ends. The noise stopped. Arthur discovered, to his embarrassment, he was lying curled up in a small ball on the floor with his arms wrapped around his head. He smiled weakly. Charming man, he said. I wish I had a daughter so I could forbid her to marry one. You wouldn't need to, said Ford. They've got as much sex appeal as a road accident. Holy shit, I'm stealing that. I'm so stealing that. Pilot titties are looking around nervously. Yeah, I would not want Vogons for my pilot. You have as much sex appeal as a road accident. That's fucking great. I'm stealing that. He added as Arthur began to uncurl himself. You better be prepared to jump into hyperspace. It's unpleasantly like being drunk. What's so unpleasant about being drunk? I ask a glass of water. I love this stupid book. Arthur thought about this. Ford, he said. Yeah? What's this fish doing in my ear? It's translating for you. It's a babblefish. Look it up in the book if you want. Oh, Babel. It's a babelfish, like the Tower of Babel. Okay, wait, that's actually so cool. He tossed over the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and then curled himself up into a fetal ball to prepare himself for the jump. At that moment, the bottom fell out of Arthur's mind. His eyes turned inside out. His feet began to leak out of the top of his head. The room folded flat around him, spun around, shifted out of existence, and left him sliding into his own navel. They were passing through hyperspace. The Babelfish, said the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy quietly, is a small yellow and leech-like. It is probably the oddest thing in the universe. It feeds on brainwave energy received not from its own carrier, but from those around it. It absorbs all unconscious mental frequencies from this brainwave energy to nourish itself with. It then excretes into the mind of its carrier a telepathic matrix formed by combining the conscious thought frequencies with nerve signals picked up from the speech centers of the brain which has supplied them. The practical upshot of all of this is that you stick a babblefish in your ear, you can instantly understand anything said to you in any form of language. The speech patterns you actually hear decode the brainwave matrix which has been fed to your mind by your babblefish. Pictures of God is like a TI-84. That's actually really good. I also see it. Like, I imagine, like, it's just like a little, like, book you pull out. Like literally just like a little flip book. Or like a Kindle. Actually, I see it more as like a Kindle, if that makes sense. A Kindle, but with, like, buttons. Oh, okay, hold on. It keeps going. Now, it is such a bizarrely improbable coincidence that anything so mind-bogglingly useful could have evolved purely by chance that some thinkers have chosen to see as a final and clinching proof of the non-existence of God. The argument goes something like this. If I refuse to prove that I exist, says God, for proof denies faith, and without faith I am nothing. But, says man, the babblefish is a dead giveaway, isn't it? It could not have evolved by chance. It proves you exist, and therefore, by your own arguments, you don't. QED. Oh dear, says God. I hadn't thought of that, and promptly vanishes in a puff of logic. Oh, that was easy, says man, and for an encore goes on to prove that black is white and gets himself killed on the next zebra crossing. Most leading theologians claim that this is an argument load of dingoes' kidneys, but that didn't stop Ulan Kolopid from making a small fortune when he used it as a central theme of his best-selling book. Well, that about wraps it up for God. Meanwhile, the poor babblefish, by effectively removing all barriers to communication between different races and cultures, has caused more and more bloodier wars than anything in the history of creation. Oh, the early Kindle's like a little physical keyboard, kind of like a BlackBerry? Yeah, that's what I imagine it then. Arthur let out a low groan. He was horrified to discover that the kick through hyperspace hadn't killed him. He was now 6 light years from the place that Earth would have been if it still existed. The Earth. Visions of it Sam sickeningly through his nauseated mind. There was no way his imagination could feel the impact of the whole Earth having gone. It was too big. He prodded his feelings by thinking that his parents and sister had gone. No reaction. He thought of all the people he had been close to. No reaction. Then he thought of a complete stranger he had been standing behind in the queue at the supermarket 2 days before and felt a sudden stab. The supermarket was gone. Everyone in it was gone. Nelson's column has gone. Nelson's column had gone and there would be no outcry because there was no one left to make an outcry. From now on, Nelson's column only existed in his mind. England only existed in his mind. His mind stuck here in this dank, smelly, steel-lined spaceship. A wave of claustrophobia closed in on him. England no longer existed. Thank God! Alright, wrapping it up there. Alright, that's it. That's the end. England no longer existed. The end. Amen. Amen, brother. Amazing. God, how beautiful. Yippee! Yeah, exactly. England no longer existed. Yippee! Hooray! Hooray for the death of England! Now the world is a safe place. Finally, we're free. England no longer existed. He got that. Somehow, he got it. He tried again. America, he thought, has gone. Oh. No. I don't like that. He couldn't grasp it. He decided to start smaller again. New York has gone. No! No! In New York, no! No! Guys, I guess you get some, you lose some. Oh, New York, no. No. New York is gone. No reaction. He'd never seriously believe it existed anyways. The dollar, he thought, has sunk forever. Slight tremor there. Every Bogart movie has been wiped, he said to himself, and that gave him a nasty knock. McDonald's, he thought. There is no longer any such thing as a McDonald's hamburger. He passed out. When he came around a second later, he found out he was sobbing for his mother. New York is a sacrifice one. That means I'm gone too. It's so over. He jerked himself violently to his feet. Ford! Ford looked up from where he was sitting in a corner, humming to himself. He always found the actual traveling through space part of space rather trying. Yeah, he said. If you're a researcher on this book thing and you were on Earth, you must have been gathering material on it. Well, I was able to extend the original entry a bit, yes. Let me see what it says in this edition then. I've got to see it. Yeah, okay. He passed over it again. Arthur grabbed hold of it and tried to stop his hands shaking. He pressed the entry for the relevant page. The screen flashed and swirled and resolved into a page of print. Arthur stared at it. It doesn't have an entry. Ford looked over his shoulder. Yes, it does, he said. Oh, yes, it does, he said. Down there, see at the bottom of the screen? Just above Essentria Galambits, triple-breasted horror of erotica and 33... The what? Eccentrica Galambits, the triple-breasted whore of Eroticon 6. What the fuck? Sounds like a solid planet. Arthur followed Ford's finger and saw where it was pointing. For a moment, it still didn't register. Then his mind nearly blew up. What? Harmless? Is that all it's got to say? Harmless? One word! Ford shrugged. Well, there are 100 billion stars in the galaxy, and only a limited amount of space in the book's microprocessors, he said. And no one knew much about the Earth, of course. Well, for God's sake, I hope you managed to rectify that a bit. Oh, yes, well, I managed to transmit a new entry off to the editor. He had to trim it a bit, but it's still an improvement. And what does it say now? Asked Arthur. Mostly harmless, admitted Ford with a slightly embarrassed cough. Mostly harmless, shouted Arthur. What was that noise? Hissed Ford. It was me shouting, shouted Arthur. No, shut up, said Ford. I think we're in trouble. You think we're in trouble? Outside the door were the clear sounds of marching footsteps. The Dendrises, whispered Arthur. No, those are steel-tipped boots, said Ford. Oh, shit. There was a sharp ringing rap on the door. Then who is it? Said Arthur. Well, said Ford, if we're lucky, it's just the Vogons come to throw us into space. And if we're unlucky? If we're unlucky, said Ford grimly, the captain might be serious in his threat that he's going to read us some of his poetry first. And that is up to chapters. We're at chapter 7 now. And that is where I'll end it. Damn, that took like an hour. Since you're an alien, can you get me their number? I'm not giving you their number to Eroticon 6. That's my private planet. You can't have it. Alright. I'm gonna dip out and then fuck around and VC with some friends while I make food and then record like I needed to. But yeah! Yay! More Hitchhiker's Guide! Yippee! I love the triple-breasted horror of Eroticon 6. God, what a... Also, it's done. No, we're just up to chapter 7. I just have stuff to go do. We love poorly spelled books about space. We do love poorly spelled books about space. We'll probably do another one maybe next week or the week after. I also have to start planning League of Legends. and I gotta play League of Legends. Ah, I gotta play hours of League of Legends. It's okay. The things I do for money. Yeah, don't yeah me. All right, kiddos. That's weird. 12 hours in stream. I'm not. No. Goodbye. Oh, to Laura. Goodbye. Go see the triple-breasted whore. Goodbye.